day 53 of Grace Changes Everything, and I've entitled today Transformed, Not Conformed. And looking again at Romans chapter 12 verse 2, do not be conformed to the pattern of this world, instead be transformed by the renewing of your mind, so that you may be able to prove what is the good, acceptable and perfect will of God. Now, to be transformed requires us to choose something, to choose not to be conformed. And that's a choice we have to make every day. Because we're under constant pressure, we're under constant bombardment from the world and everything around us. And so it's not easy to always choose to walk after the Spirit, but it's something that we have to do if we want to see change in our life. Now, here's the choice. We can carry on living, you can carry on living a life shaped by everything that goes on around you. A life shaped by ordinary reasoning, the things of the world, the circumstances in the world, what life throws at you. Or you can choose to live a life shaped by God. The word conformed in this verse, that's exactly what it's talking about. It's talking about being pushed into a mould by the world and your circumstances. It talked about being shaped and assuming the shape of the world around you. Here's an important truth. If you do nothing, you will be shaped by the world around you. If you do nothing, you will start to look like and behave like the world around you. You will revert back to your old ways of living before you were a believer. It's also important to appreciate that what's really needed is active participation in this process. And the reason is this, that if you do nothing, you will still be transformed. But in this case, you'll be transformed into the patterns of the world. You'll be transformed by the pressures of life. You'll be transformed by the pressures that other people put on you. Here's the good news though. You can choose what shapes you. But it's important that in making that choice, we're not passive. You can be transformed by the renewing of your mind. You see, transformation is achieved by the power of God at work in us. And he works by both his Spirit and his word in our hearts to change the way we think. And as we think differently, we begin to live differently. It's an inward change that produces an outward change. The Greek word for transformed is one that sounds a bit familiar. It's metamorpho. It's where we get our word metamorphosis from. And the truth is, this is the really good news. You are being offered a life of radical transformation. The Greek word there carries this idea of changing on the outside to align with what is already true inside, an inner reality. You're already changed from the inside, and now Christ is calling you forward to change and produce that change on the outside by thinking differently, by renewing your mind. You see, change takes place in your mind through the power of the Spirit. It's your soul that is changed, your mind, your will, your emotions. Your spirit's always perfect. It carries the life of Christ, the love of Christ, the power of Christ, the understanding of Christ, the wisdom of Christ. But it's our mind, our will and emotions that need to experience that transformation. Your soul is the place of change. And it's important because as a man thinks in his heart, so is he. So to see change, we need to think differently in our hearts and in our minds. So to live differently, we have to think differently. And that's a powerful truth. So Father, I thank you that you have made a way for us to change. You have made a way for us to be totally transformed into your likeness. And that it's a powerful way that allows us to change our thinking, to change our lives. Amen.